Hello, fellow pen lovers and stationery enthusiasts. It's Christy here, Snarky Wordsworth over on Instagram and Reddit, and today I am going to do my currently inked for February. We're about a week in to the month, and it's given me a little bit of time with some of these inks, so I have some very specific thoughts. If you follow me over on Instagram, you already know that I have very intense thoughts about some of my currently pinked colors and pens, but I've got lots of other shades going on this month, so hopefully there'll be something interesting and new to see here. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with my first ink, and that is Diamine's Shimmertastic in Caramel Sparkle. And I have that inked in my Esterbrook Estie in the Cola colorway, and this has the journaler nib. Okay, so I really love the color of this ink. It's a beautiful, beautiful orange brown, and I picked it primarily because I wanted to sort of have fun with the Kill Winter with Orange hashtag over on Instagram. But I am already growing a little bit tired of this particular shade of orange. I am super fickle, apparently. But I don't know if I'm going to stick with this shade in this pen. I really might switch to something a little bit redder. So we'll see how fast I can go through this particular converter's worth of ink and see if I make it all the way through the month before swapping it out for something. But it is a really well-behaved shimmer ink. It has not given me any problems whatsoever. So if you are looking for something with a good amount of shimmer with a lovely orange-brown shade, then this one might be for you. Okay, next up for me is one of my absolute favorite brown shades, and this is Oyster Hour from Ferris Wheel Press. This one always starts out a bit light for me, and then as it dries down gets a little bit more rich, and I just am sort of fascinated by inks that do that. But yeah. Okay, so I do have Oyster Hour inked in my Kaweco Sport in the Macchiato colorway. It does have my Architect nib in here, and I do love it. And like I said, this is one of my all-time favorite browns. I know it's a little bit lighter than, like those true rich deep browns, but it's just beautiful and it works kind of for any season for me. And I usually have it in my rotation at least a couple times every season. Okay, next color up is brand new to me. This is Sailor Shikiori's Tamatebako. I love this color. I just think it's the most beautiful, intense, deep, dark shade of blue. And when the light hits it just a little bit, you get a whole lot of different facets to the color. It's just gorgeous. There's not a huge amount of like shade. There's no shimmer, but there's just a hint of sheen on the edges that kind of reminds me of Sailor Manyo Kikyo, which is one of my favorite blues. But yeah, but it's a little bit darker than that, and it's just gorgeous. This is one that I have inked up in my Franklin-Christoph 45 XLV. It looks amazing in this. It has the Nagahara fine cursive italic nib in it, and it just shows off to perfection. And there you have the Sailor Shikiori Tamatebako. You can already see it's not quite dried down, but it really is quite a beautiful, beautiful, deep, dark blue. Um, According to the internet, it was supposed to be paired with the Dragon Palace pen, which seems a slightly odd combination, but to each their own. I particularly enjoy it in this Franklin-Christoph with the beautiful, beautiful fine cursive italic nib, but again, different people like different color combinations. All right, next up is Birmingham Pen Company's Molten Tin. This is beautiful. It's one of those inks that goes down initially as one color and then dries down completely differently, and I just love the whole process. And this one I have in my Traveler's Company fountain pen. Just it's one of my favorite nibs. Just a regular old fine. And you can see right now there's a good amount of pink within the ink while it's still wet, but then it's going to dry down to this absolutely gorgeous shade of sort of a slate gray with just a hint of that pink on the edges. So apologies for the lighting shift. Time just got away from me, so I did have to pop in my daylight bulbs. Again, apologies for that. Hopefully it will not really affect the color too much, what with them being daylight bulbs, but let's carry on. My next ink is Alt-Bordeaux from Rohrer and Kingner. This is a fairly new to me ink, but I'm loving it so far. It's just a really beautiful, rich burgundy. And I really enjoy this shade just in general, but this particular brand it's just really gorgeous ink. And I have this one inked up in my Pilot Elite 95S. That's the one with the champagne cap and the burgundy body. It's just really, really good fit with this pen, and I'm loving writing with it. Even in just an extra fine, it flows so beautiful. It's so comfortable to write with. And you can see it's still drying down now, but it's this gorgeous, rich wine-colored shade. And then there's just this teeniest, tiniest hint of dark sheen at the very edges of the letter that just makes it really pop. But yeah, loving it. Okay, next up is one of my inks from Birmingham Pen Company, and that is Antique Aubergine. This is such a beautiful ink. Writes so, so well. Very, very wet, comfortable writing. I just love this particular shade. And this deep, dark, purpley brown is inked in my Pilot Decimo in the champagne colorway. And I have this with an extra fine nib, and it doesn't matter. It still writes like a dream. Okay, you can see with the extra fine nib, there's not a huge amount of character being shown off, but it does still look really beautiful. And again, the writing experience is really nice. Once it completely dries down, it's still a very lovely sort of grayish brownish purple that I absolutely adore. It's totally my style. I am curious as to how this would look in a broader nib, so we will probably see that either in March or April, I'm sure. Okay, moving on. My next ink is from Pennonia, and that's Tihanyi Lila. Again, I've said this before. I hope I'm not butchering that, but I probably am. That said, this is an absolutely gorgeous shade of purple. I love it. It's just soft and just comfortable and cool, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful color. And I have been waiting for the perfect pen in which to use this, and I finally have the perfect pen. So I have this purple inked in this incredibly beautiful, brand new Esterbrook Estie in Lilac. I am just dying over how much I love this pen. I have it in the Scribe Nib, which is a modified architect, and it was made for this ink. Super comfortable to write with, and the lettering just is gorgeous. Beautiful shading with this particular color. I'm unbelievably happy. Once it dries down, you'll be able to see just how beautiful the shading is with this particular nib. The color in general is just all around beautiful, and it really is a wonderfully wet, clean ink. Like there are no elements of scratchiness whatsoever. Especially in some kinds of architect style nibs, it can feel like it drags even with a like average wetness kind of ink, but there's no problems whatsoever. So I'm very, very pleased. Okay, and we are now on to my currently pinked inks. This one up is Ferris Wheel Press's Spadina Rose. This is one of my go-to sort of dusty rose colors. I love it so much, but this was not initially the ink that I had in this particular pen. I had Sailor Shikiori's Sakura Mori. It's a beautiful pink, but it is not for me. It's definitely much more of a true traditional pink ink, and I'm not that user. But if you do like a really beautiful true pink, Sakura Mori is definitely one you want to look at. And this Spadina Rose I have in my Platinum 3776 in the Sakura Celluloid colorway. I love this pen. It's beautiful. I thought it would look really amazing with a true pink, and it did. I just don't enjoy true pink inks, I guess. It does, however, look incredible with this Spadina Rose, and this is much more in my wheelhouse. I know I will go through the entire converter with no problem. I've already written with it a couple of letters in it, and I'm very, very happy with it. And there you can see, even with Platinum's very fine, regular fine nib, you still get a little tiny bit of shading in there, which is quite impressive with as fine as a nib that a Platinum has. So I always really enjoy writing with this one. The ink is definitely wet enough to be comfortable as a writer, and like I said, it's one of my go-to dusty pinks. All right, almost finished. My next pink ink is Robert Oster's Rose Gold Antiqua. I'm definitely going to pick up a bottle of this. Lau from Kenchan Crafts sent me the sample, and I've fallen in love with this ink so much over the last couple of weeks. It's just beautiful. Oh, and for a Robert Oster shimmer ink, it's very well behaved for me. I tend to have poor luck with Robert Oster inks, but this one I've been really enjoying. This one I have in my TWSBI Diamond Rose Gold Mini. This is the perfect ink for this pen, and I have the 1.1 stub in this, and it's just working out so wonderfully well for me in this. This one has just enough rose gold shimmer to really make the ink pop. I've not had any trouble at all in this TWSBI stub nib, and I'm definitely excited to try it in some of my other stubs, but I just love the base color. I think that's so beautiful. And then, like I said, that pop of the rose gold shimmer, I think really adds another dimension to it. I don't know if you can tell even while it's still wet, but in the pool, it's like nothing but shimmer. It's kind of crazy. It's a beautiful, beautiful ink. Like, I've seen so many people have success with it, so I just may not be doing it right. Like, maybe I'm not getting a draw correctly. But as much as I love this, if I can't get it to work in a pen, I just don't know what I'll do with it. And as I mentioned, I did pop it into my TWSBI Eco with the stub nib, and you can even see here, like, look at this. I don't know, where's the ink? It feels like it's just gold shimmer. So we'll have to see. So hopefully at least this swatching will work out okay. Okay, and that is Vinta Inks Lakambini in my TWSBI Eco with the 1.1 stub. I will say I absolutely adore the TWSBI Eco stubs, even more than, say, the stub that you find in the Diamond Mini. I don't know how much difference there is, but it definitely does feel like there's a tiny bit of difference as far as how broad that 1.1 stub is. Yeah, I know 1.1 should be 1.1 everywhere, but it definitely does not feel like it. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and let this one dry down, especially so you can see it. In fact, I'll be back in just a few minutes once everything has had a chance to completely dry down, and then we can get a last look and I can share my final thoughts with you for the month. All right, so we are here with everything pretty much totally dried down. And these are the colors. Like I said, the Diamine Caramel Sparkle really is quite beautiful, and you can see that shimmer in there. It works really, really well in my pens. I have tried it in a number of pens. I just, for whatever reason, I'm not feeling it right now. Just maybe it's the season. I don't know. But if you are looking for sort of an orangey brown, highly recommended. Ferris Wheel Press's Oyster Hour is always a go-to for me. I just think it's a beautiful, beautiful shade of brown. I love that it's a little bit creamy and pale, but still totally legible. And here's that sheen on that Tamatebako from Sailor Shikiori that I was telling you about. It's definitely a darker, richer blue than Sailor Manu Kikyo, but I do really like it, and I always love that sheen going on with the blue. I just think it's beautiful. And it was a very well-behaved ink in this particular nib. Sometimes I do not have luck. If it's a little bit dry, it's not going to work for me. And this one was, it writes beautifully. Okay, Birmingham Pen Company's Molten Tin. You can see that the pink is gone now that it has dried down, but we're left behind with this beautiful sort of slate blue, and I love that color so much. Rohrer and Klinger's Alt-Bordeaux. That's in my Pilot Elite 95S. And like I mentioned before, you don't see a ton of shade within such a fine nib with that EF, but still a gorgeous color. I'm very much a fan. Over here, we've got my Antique Aubergine from Birmingham Pen Company. I love this color so much. I'm so glad that I bought the pack that it's in. It would be worth it if I hated all the other inks, but I do love them all so far. It has a little bit of shading even in this EF nib, but not as much as I would imagine I'll get when I have a broader nib, so I'm definitely going to be popping that in one to try. Then there's this Tihanyi Lila from Pennonia. Gorgeous, gorgeous shade of purple. Absolutely the best combo in my new Estie Lilac. I am in love. This is such a beautiful, beautiful color and such a fantastic pen. My tried and true Spadina Rose from Ferris Wheel Press. This one is in the 3776 Platinum with the Sakura colorway and a fine nib. No shimmer or sheen, but there's still some shade, even though it's in that very fine nib. And here's that Robert Oster Rose Gold Antiqua. I love it. Look at that. Look at that shimmer. And it's just enough to make things interesting and pop. It doesn't get crazy, does not clog my pens. Just is a really, really nice shimmer rose with a beautiful rose base at that. And there's my Vinta Lakambini. I wish that I could figure out how to make this work because it is a gorgeous color. It's a little lighter pink, but still with a little bit of dustiness, so it's not super in your face. But look at that shimmer. It's crazy. It is actively crazy. And so once I close this book, that gold is going everywhere on the other side. So it's just not the most well-behaved of inks, especially since I've had so much luck with Vinta in the past. So I'm not quite sold on it, but I might give it another try just to see if I can get comfortable with it. All right, so those were my currently inked February inks. I do think that I'm going to make a post over on Instagram at the end of the month, just sort of covering how I feel about these colors as the weeks go by, see if I'm any more comfortable with this Lakambini by the end of February, as opposed to how I felt about it at the beginning. So please do remember to follow me over on there. If this video was at all interesting, entertaining, useful to you, please consider hitting that like button or potentially even subscribing to the channel. As always, thank you so much for joining me. If you happen to have any questions, thoughts, opinions about any of these inks or inks that you think that I might like, or potentially alternatives for this Lakambini, please do pop those in the comments. I always love talking to people about fountain pens and inks and stationery in general, so I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. If you have made it to the end of this incredibly long, currently inked, you are all the best things. Again, thank you so much for joining me, and hopefully I will see you next time. Bye-bye.